Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. The United States Geological Survey is reporting 2020 silver reserves and silver production. So let's explore. Yes, this is a very interesting data compilation from a report by the U.S. Geological Survey that talks about mine production and silver reserves and the like. There's a lot of data in there. So this article by Seeking Alpha from Ketchum gives us some insight, sort of a summary of what's going on in the world of silver. So we're going to take a look at this and see exactly how this information has been parsed out and what we can read from it. So we can see here that there's some bullet points. The USGS reports increase silver production and reserves, and that these increased in Peru, where silver reserves declined in Poland. And production increased slightly, and but the primary silver production is declining rapidly, which is nothing new. We saw that last year as well. And the other thing is that most of the silver that is produced is as a byproduct from copper and zinc and lead. And I think that kind of gives us some insight as to silver's tie-in with these base metals that I talked about previously, and how silver's dual role is really becoming even more and more apparent these days. Each year, the U.S. Geological Survey publishes a report on world mine production and reserves. As precious metal investors, we are especially interested in the silver segment of this report, which gives us extremely valuable information on the supply side of the silver market. And, sometimes I let that stuff go by, and other times I don't, but so if you're new here, I don't like to look at precious metals as investments. I don't see them as investments because they're money. Money in and of itself, I believe, is not an investment. It is a way to protect your wealth, a preserver of wealth. But here we can see the 5-year silver chart that they threw in here, and they go on to talk about how the silver price has risen 20% since last year, ever since the Federal Reserve started cutting rates and initiating its repo program. Now think about that statement right there for a moment, and it's true. Silver price has risen 20% since last year. And so if you think about it, and you take two different periods of time, such as last year and this year, whatever measure they use, that means that silver has been a winner and has performed above the level of inflation greatly in that 1 year time. But make no mistake, if you calculate all throughout history of silver price, and even back past the 100 years or whatever, really silver has kept up with inflation, barely. You have to look at a long road. You have to look at a long span of time. You can't just pick certain dates and to be able to make a case one way or the other, by the way. Just a little side note, and that's not why the article is mentioning this, but it does go on to say that Rabobank expects more rate cuts in 2020 due to the slowing economy, so that should boost silver investment demand. On the other hand, we also need to look at the supply side of the silver market. Most of the silver supply is produced as a byproduct from base metal mining. This is a new trend that has started a few years ago as primary silver production declined while base metal byproduct silver production increased. 37.7% of silver production comes as a byproduct of zinc and lead mine supply, while 23.5% comes as a byproduct of copper production. Thus, 61% of global silver production is as a result of copper, zinc, and lead production. And so here we can see silver production by source metal. We can see primary silver is 26.2%. Lead and zinc is 37.7%. Gold is 12.2%. So in other words, silver is produced as a byproduct of gold. And copper is 23.5%, with a very small slither of silver being produced from other metals. We are seeing a decrease in demand for base metals this year due to a slowdown in the economy and also due to the effects of the U.S.-China trade war and more recently the outbreak of the coronavirus. Copper took a big hit after the announcement of the coronavirus outbreak in China in January of 2020. Chinese copper traders declared force majeure on lower copper demand. I cannot stress enough how important China is on a demand perspective. If China decides to quarantine cities, borders, airlines, manufacturing plants, this will have a huge impact on demand for base metals. Asia is the largest consumer of commodities, and a decrease in demand for base metals will lead to a decrease in production of silver as a byproduct of base metal mining. And here we can see the 1-year copper spot price. This is tracked in pounds, dollars per pound. Interesting, Statista reported that silver coming from primary silver miners decreased significantly in 2018, and this trend is going to continue going forward. Primary silver miners have enormous problems with declining ore grades, and this is starting to show up by the numbers. I will make a little note here that First Majestic, one of the big ones, is utilizing a lot more technology and efforts to try to stave off some of that. Yes, they've closed down a mine. We've actually talked about that in a prior video as well, but they are hopeful for 2021 at least to help stave some of that, to create more primary silver mines or to restart primary silver mines. We'll see how that goes. Technology is being ever evolving and changing with mining, so it'll be quite interesting to see what happens in the coming year or two. Very important to note is that declining primary silver supply only has a minimal effect on the silver price because most of the supply is coming from base metal byproduct. That's true. And here we can see from this chart, very interesting, we can expand this here, primary source metal and the production by year. So this is a very telling chart, I think, that tells us what is being produced from 2011 to through 2018. And we can see that by and large, there's been a decrease all across the board. Most of these metals here. Very interesting. But you saw in 2015 and 2016, from the primary source metal with the amount of silver produced, there was a peak in 2015 and 2016. So by primary silver mines, we probably have reached peak mining supply. And looking at gold there, we can see the same thing. It was 2015. Copper was 2016, was the peak. And for lead and zinc, it was in 2017 with a slight decrease there. A quite telling chart indeed. The 2020 USGS report shows that silver production and silver reserves are trending upwards. Mexico and Peru are still the two largest silver producers in the world, and Peru is the leader in silver reserves. Peru's silver reserves increase from 110,000 to 120,000 tons, while Poland's reserves decrease from 110,000 to 100,000 tons. It looked like 2014 was a year of peak silver production, but in 2019, global silver production managed to increase, gain by 27,000 tons per year. When we extrapolate the charts, we can estimate that silver will be depleted in about 20 years, if not sooner, as the average mine life of a silver mine is currently under 10 years. But again, it surprises me that silver production and silver reserves both managed to go up in 2019. Let's take a look at that. And we can see the increase of mine production in the United States, Argentina, Australia, Bolivia, Chile, China, Mexico is up, Peru was up, Poland was up, Russia stayed the same, and other countries decreased slightly. It's very fascinating indeed. Now, I want to go back to this statement here. The average mine life, that there's about 20 years or sooner before all the silver will run out from mining. That is if this current mining stays at the pace it is. That is not taking into account new mines, new technologies, and the like, and other metals being discovered and find. The geology on this stuff is quite amazing. How are they able to find these things and pull the metal out of the ground? Make no mistake, too, that even if all the mining stopped tomorrow, there's still a lot of silver out there to last quite a while, and they would be able to recycle a whole lot of it through and through. Now, the price would go up, obviously, but I believe we got a lot more than 20 years left, much more than 20 years. In fact, I would be shocked if we didn't have 50 years left of silver mining at its present course. But we'll see how this plays out, because you think about it, there's a lot of technology. There's more silver out there than people think, and it's just a matter of extrapolating it. And here we can see the silver reserves in tons and but so if we take a look at the three largest silver producers, Peru, Mexico, and China, during 2019, we saw that Peru's silver reserves have risen to an impressive 120,000 tons. On the production side, Peru has been doing well since 2013, with base metal mine production rising 30% from 2013 and 2017, but in 2018, we saw mining production decline again. However, Peru expects its copper production to grow 27% and gold output to expand 12% in the next 3 years by 2022. So here's the base metal mining production in Peru from 2010 to 2018. So look at that. It's quite a stepwards up there, but may have seen a peak in 2017. Peru copper production since 2000 and outlook to 2022. Look, it's on the upside, which means more silver is coming. Looking at Mexico, it has been projected that 212 million ounces of silver will be produced in Mexican mines in 2020. The chart below from Trading Economics shows how Mexico's overall mining production improved in 2019. Silver reserves were unchanged at 370 or 37,000 tons. Third largest producer of silver is in China. We've seen a nice comeback in 2018 and 2019. Silver production in China comes primarily from a byproduct of lead and zinc, about 95%. So we need to take a closer look at the base metal mining. Mining production in China increased 5.6% in December 2019 over the same month in the previous year. So it's likely that silver production will be growing in China. Silver reserves were unchanged at 41,000 tons. So if you look at those numbers, base metal mining has been doing very well, and a lot of silver is coming from there as a byproduct. Nevertheless, it is a fact that silver reserves and grades are coming down, and we'll be facing a future where silver production will decrease as well, at least decrease in its present form, not taking into account new mining discoveries and the like. And that's what's missing from this piece. The decrease in primary silver production is evidence in that for now. For example, Fresnillo had a terrible year as its ore grades kept declining. The underperformance of their stock price is indicating that things are getting worse. Here's Fresnillo and Saucito mine productions and average yield there in that chart from SRS Rocca report. The conclusion is that primary silver mines face a deteriorating trend in their production profile, and the amount of capital being put in exploration is almost non-existent. Not true. At least not true for First Majestic, as I covered in a prior video. So more and more silver will need to come as a byproduct from base metal mining. Base metal mine production has seen a nice uptrend in 2019, but a recession could put a dent on that, and also on the silver supply. Now that is very true. That is the push and pull of silver, and I think that's yet another reason why it doesn't really track along with gold the way that some of us expect it should be. There's only one real cure to lower silver production, and that is higher silver prices. Nevertheless, the current trend is still pointing to rising silver reserves, in silver production, but this could reverse at any time. And I can't state enough, and even though it is mentioned in this article, that primary silver mining production is not that big of an effect on silver prices. But make no mistake, there's companies that do it for the most part. First Majestic, which also I think deals in gold as well, and I believe even some other mining, but they want to try to get these good ores. And I think that from what I understand, they are seeking it out, and they have found some, and there may be new mines coming down the pike. We will find out. It's going to be very interesting to see, indeed, but fascinating information on the USGS reports, the 2020 silver reserves and silver production. Post your thoughts below about the data contained herein, and what are your thoughts on the supply and the potential demand in the coming year or two, and how do you think it's going to affect price? And again, we see a reoccurring theme here, and base metals, copper, zinc, lead, and the like, they're utilized in industry and technology, and they're being tied to silver not only in their geology but also as they're being treated as a commodities. So I think it's quite fascinating. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching, and remind you that I post videos on a daily basis, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe. I got this darn hole in my sock. It really teased me off, but this hole had formed today. It wasn't on my foot when I first started this video, but now it has grown, and there's now a full-fledged hole in my sock. I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh well.